Imagine standing at the ocean's shore. Picture a spot in your thoughts where the sand feels chilled and moist under your toes. The sun has dipped under the horizon, painting the heavens in hues of violet and bronze. Ahead lies the sea, dark and shimmering, boundless. Tune into its cadence, the drawn-out sigh as waves creep onto the shore, the brief hush, the gradual retreat. It echoes like respiration, like an immense, enduring presence inviting you nearer. Now venture into the shallows. The liquid chills you initially, then shifts to merely unfamiliar. You push forward until the bottom falls away, and suddenly you're adrift, unburdened, hovering amid the heavens overhead and the abyss underneath. The final rays of daylight vanish. Stars emerge gradually, their images sparkling below, turning your path into a sea of glows where direction loses all distinction. Inhale deeply, plunge downward. The initial 10 meters feel known. Azure, yielding to deeper blue subtle pressure on your eardrums. Beams of soft illumination pierce from the surface, dimming progressively as you go lower. Soon even the blue vanishes. You're entering the twilight realm now, the mesopelagic layer, where sunlight's remnants fade into eternal gloom. Here, the depths are chilly, not harsh, yet they envelop you firmly from all sides. You continue descending. Reaching 200 meters, you enter utter obscurity, the midnight zone. No illumination has reached these waters in your era, your ancestors, or humanity's entire span. You're enveloped in a void so absolute that distinguishing open from shut eyes becomes impossible. Then, motion stirs. An entity glides below you. Not swift but measured and purposeful, akin to a shadow crossing a starless expanse. You sense it prior to sighting it. A ripple in the current, a surge of force ascending from the depths, followed by a form emerging from the shadows. Colossal, elegant, beyond comprehension in scale. It's a blue whale, measuring 30 meters from snout to tail, comprising 200 metric tons of sinew, skeleton, and blubber. Its eye, modest relative to its frame, grapefruit-sized, captures a flicker of glowing life and appears to regard you as it glides by. Deep within that vast sanctuary of tissue, its heart pulses rhythmically, once per 10 seconds. You might doze off in the intervals. The creature moves on. Its flukes lift and descend in a single motion, propelling it into the shadows. And then it's vanished. Solitude returns. This represents today's seas, covering 70% of our planet's expanse. The planet's most expansive ecosystem, harboring greater living mass than every landmass together. Yet, traversing its vast expanses, you could pass days encountering nothing bigger than a gelatinous drifter. The sea is immense. The sea plunges profoundly, and by its own ancient timeline, the sea stands nearly barren. That blue whale you glimpsed, it's the grandest creature to ever roam existence, surpassing every dinosaur, every piscine form, every scaled beast, any being that ever inhaled air or sifted oxygen via fins. Across Earth's 4-billion-year chronicle of life, none rivaled its magnitude, and it stands solitary. Not utterly isolated, of course. Roughly 25,000 blue whales inhabit global waters nowadays. A rebound from perhaps 5,000 in the 1960s, Nadir, but solitary in the crucial way. Unrivaled at the pinnacle, the sole surviving behemoth in an era once teeming with them. Turn back time, not mere millennia. That's a fleeting moment in oceanic terms, not even millions. Venture tens of millions, hundreds of millions, 500 million years into antiquity. The surrounding liquid has transformed. 10 million years back, a blue whale here faced peril. Prowling nearby or pursuing it was Leviathan melvilli, a toothed sperm whale equipped with functional dentition in upper and lower jaws, each tooth rivaling a wine bottle's girth. Leviathan didn't sieve tiny crustaceans. Leviathan devoured fellow cetaceans. It coexisted with Ototus megalodon, a shark that analyses indicate might have spanned 24 meters. Megalodon's maw could gape sufficiently to engulf a great white without grazing its edges. Delve deeper into history. 66 million years prior, pre-asteroid cataclysm, the seas were mosasaur domain. Mosasaurus hoffmanni, a wee extended 17 meters, sporting a cranium designed for pulverizing and jaws that dislocated serpent style. It navigated alongside Elasmosaurus, whose neck spanned 7 meters alone, boasting 71 vertebrae, outnumbering any creature past or present. Even earlier, 370 million years ago, prior to dinosaurs' rise, before saurians reclaimed the waves, the supreme hunter was Dunkleosteus, a 4-meter plated fish devoid of true teeth, armed instead with perpetually honing bony edges capable of shearing any organism. Its bite unleashed in 20 milliseconds, half a blink's duration. 500 million years back, amid the Cambrian waters, the seafloor's nightmare stood out as peculiar, measuring just 60 centimeters in length. Yet in an era where most creatures registered in millimeters, it loomed large. Equipped with compound eyes boasting 16,000 lenses and a round maw functioning like a shredder, it defined terror. Each period birthed its beasts. Every epoch featured top hunters, sea behemoths, and deep-sea dominators. Their labels shifted, their forms evolved. Protective plating yielded to agility, breathing slits to air sacs, fangs to bony plates. These colossi surged forth, only to vanish sequentially. That's the puzzle guiding us onward. Why did the seas invest 500 million years crafting titans? What elements in the liquid realm, the dynamics, the reactions, the biological forces drove organisms toward massive scales? And why, upon humanity's emergence, did we encounter an ocean mostly stripped of its grandest dwellers? The blue whale persists, alongside select big sharks. The colossal squid lurks below, but megalodon has faded to legend. Mosasaurs rest as relics. Devonian-plated fish survive merely in exhibit cases. The waters once brimming with horrors now float in subdued silence, akin to a gathering after the crowd has dispersed. Where have they vanished to? What ended them? Might they return? The coast is receding at this moment. Freighters dot the distant skyline, harbor beacons pulse, mingling with the customary tang of brine and kelp. Allow it all to blur away. The surrounding sea transforms, it's heating up. Its hue veers from profound indigo toward a verdant clouded tone, laden with sustenance and vitality. If you surfaced to inhale the overhead atmosphere, it would settle oddly in your chest, denser, oxygen-packed, with a subtle iron tang. Land masses shift, not figuratively, but in truth. Shorelines stretch and realign, migrating to layouts alien to today's charts. You're journeying reversed now, through the Cenozoic and beyond Megalodon's demise, across the Cretaceous, evading the impact that doomed mosasaurs, spanning Jurassic and Triassic, skirting early sea crawlers, past the Permian wipeout, the deadliest mass loss Earth endured, into the Paleozoic, where seas felt fresher, more bizarre, teeming with one-off trials. We'll encounter these leviathans, We'll observe their ascent, reign, and fade, and we'll pose the query scholars have debated for 2 centuries. Sparked by a young girl of 12, unearthing an inconceivable relic from England's shores. What crafts a beast, and what destroys one? The depths grow shadowy and balmy. The initial behemoth awaits. To grasp the earliest giants, we must first probe their very existence. This isn't a light matter. Terrestrial giants prove scarce. The biggest elephant species, Paleoloxodon nomadicus, tip the scales at around 22 tons. The mightiest dinosaur, Argentinosaurus, possibly hit 70. Remarkable figures, yet they signal firm boundaries. Terrestrial bulk hits a cap forged by equations. The sea imposes no such limit. A blue whale clocks in at 200 tons, almost triple the top dinosaur, and glides through currents with elegance no equivalent earthbound creature could match. The ocean serves as a forge for colossi. To see why, consider 3 fundamental physical rules shaping all aquatic motion. The initial one dates farthest back. Archimedes uncovered it in a Syracuse bath some 22 centuries past. Plunge an item into liquid, and the liquid resists. That's buoyancy, the upward push from a medium on an immersed body, matching the mass of the displaced liquid. It seems basic because it is. A profound law condensed to one line, spanning from playthings to submersibles. For organisms, buoyancy alters the game. Ashore, gravity resists at every stride. Skeletons mainly prop you upright. Your body expends fuel through your muscles, simply to remain upright. An elephant devotes about 1/4 of its total weight solely to its framework. Sturdy, heavy limbs resembling pillars transform it into a mobile marvel of engineering design. Scale that elephant to match a blue whale's dimensions, and those limbs would shatter like brittle branches. The skeletal structure can't reinforce itself quickly enough to offset the surging bulk. That's the square-cube law at work, explaining why colossal creatures don't roam dry land. Doubling an animal's height increases its volume and thus its mass by 8-fold. Yet surface area merely quadruples along with the cross-sectional robustness. The creature gains weight quicker than it builds strength. Eventually, the calculations take over. The limbs fail to bear the load. The heart struggles to circulate blood upward. The lungs can't intake sufficient oxygen to sustain the body's processes. Terrestrial species encounter this barrier anywhere from 50 to 100 tons, varying by build. None have ever surpassed it. Underwater, though, that barrier vanishes. Dive in, and you're essentially free of weight. The surrounding fluid supports you. Your bones aren't battling gravity anymore. They can fulfill different roles, securing muscles, shielding vital organs, offering leverage for flippers. In a blue whale, the bony structure makes up just 15% of its overall mass. The majority consists of muscle, insulating fat, and the intricate systems fueling the planet's mightiest metabolism. Buoyancy doesn't merely allow for behemoths, it encourages them. The properties of liquid declare, expand to your utmost size. No engineering drawbacks apply. Your internal constraints are the sole boundaries. The next principle is more unforgiving. Back in 1847, a German scientist called Carl Bergmann examined mammals in various environments and spotted an odd trend. In cooler zones, creatures were generally bigger. Polar bears outmassed their black bear relatives. Siberian tigers surpassed those from Indonesia in size. This trend persisted through species, regions, and eons of evolution. Bergmann offered a rationale, forever linked to his name. Bigger bodies dissipate heat, at a slower rate than smaller ones. Consider this. Warmth dissipates via your exterior, but it's produced across your interior. Tiny creatures boast extensive surface relative to their bulk. A mouse, for instance, with its vast skin and ears leaking heat into the darkness. Larger ones have proportionally less exterior per unit of volume. Picture an elephant as a huge heat reservoir, retaining warmth long after dusk falls. On land, this matters a great deal. In oceans, it's essential. Seawater siphons heat from a heated form about 25 times more rapidly than atmosphere does, for a diminutive warm-blooded being. Chilly seas spell doom. Your warmth drains quicker than you can replenish it. You'll deplete your fuel in mere hours, trembling uncontrollably until the shaking ceases, followed by death. But if you're enormous, survival becomes possible. Your inner heat lingers thanks to the immense core. With a long journey to the surface, a blue whale navigates Antarctic currents that would fell a person swiftly. Its enormous bulk serves as its own barrier against the cold. That's why the biggest whales inhabit icy depths. It's the reason giant squid and colossal squid dwell in the icy abysses, not sunlit surfaces. It's why the largest fish populate cooler and polar waters, steering clear of the tropics. Frigid seas don't simply accommodate titans, they favor them. The final rule feels the most peculiar. In 1932, a Swiss researcher named Max Kleiber assessed energy use in creatures from rodents to bovines. He anticipated a direct proportion between size and calorie burn. A 10-fold heavier beast would consume 10 times the energy. He was mistaken. Energy expenditure follows body mass to the 3/4 power. A cow doesn't guzzle 10 times a goat's fuel. It uses roughly 5 or 6 times as much. On a per-pound basis, the cow operates more thriftily. It derives greater benefit from each bit of sustenance. This connection, dubbed Kleiber's law, applies to nearly every studied organism, spanning microbes to blue whales, bugs to pachyderms. It's among biology's sturdiest observations, though its origins remain partly mysterious. The equations align, but explanations lag. For behemoths, the consequences run deep. Enormous creatures operate at lower cost per unit than miniatures. A mouse forages non-stop, devouring rations at breakneck speed to merely persist. An elephant might skip meals for days. A whale endures months without eating, traversing vast seas on blubber reserves, since its colossal frame harvests fuel so effectively that patience pays off. In a marine environment where nourishment is sporadic and unreliable, where you could navigate for weeks without spotting a school of fish or a krill swarm, efficiency spells the difference between life and death. These colossal creatures aren't merely large by chance. Their enormity is a proven adaptation. It's an approach, a clever fix to the challenge of sparse resources encoded in the principles of metabolic scaling. Yet there's another element at play, functioning on a vastly broader level. The sea is ancient. For more than 3 billion years, it has maintained a form much like today's. Life originated there. The earliest cells, the initial multicellular forms, the debut of vision, mouths, intellect, all unfolded in saltwater eons before any creature ventured ashore. Consequently, the ocean has enjoyed ample time. Time for trial and error, for fine-tuning, for testing every conceivable physique and settling on the designs that endure. By contrast, terrestrial habitats are mere newcomers. Intricate organisms didn't claim the land masses until about 470 million years back. The heyday of terrestrial behemoths, the dinosaur-dominated Mesozoic, endured just 180 million years. Meanwhile, the ocean has been crafting giants for over twice that duration, with far less disruption and greater persistence. Natural selection acts as a patient artisan. The mutations needed to forge a titan don't emerge in a flash. Skeletal frameworks require overhaul. Blood flow networks demand reconfiguration. Breeding tactics must adapt to the extended development and delayed maturity inherent in hugeness. Such alterations stack up across millennia, layering improvements, honing the blueprint. The sea has leveraged that expanse of time to probe every variant of bulk, brawn, and bite. Combine these principles, and a clear pattern takes shape. Neutral buoyancy lifts the limits on framework strength. Bergmann's rule favors bulk in cooler depths. Kleiber's law renders titans thrifty. Vast geological epochs supply the foundation for evolutionary polishing. The ocean isn't simply a habitat tolerant of giants. It's an arena where they emerge as nearly unavoidable. The forces of nature propel organisms toward greater scale, much like gravity draws water to the lowest point. Not all evolutionary paths yield behemoths. The depths teem with tiny swimmers. Still, that impetus persists. A constant nudge favoring the immense. That's precisely why, after a major die-off wipes out the apex hunters, fresh colossi ascend to reclaim their roles. The ecological slots remain vacant. The underlying mechanics compel their occupation. Given a few million years, selection populates them with living forms. The real puzzle isn't why the sea spawns giants. It's which varieties it favors and what makes those specific builds thrive while rivals falter. To unravel this, we must journey to the origins, to an era predating bony fish, toothy hunters, or sighted swimmers. We head to the Cambrian. The surrounding waters shift once more. They're balmier now, subtropical, like a soothing tub. The hue turns from azure to verdant, dense with plankton and floating debris. The bottom lies perhaps 30 meters beneath, carpeted in odd bacterial films that have thrived here, untouched for 1 billion years. No fish patrol these waves, no shells litter the sediment, no reefs of coral, no recognizable contours at all. If you surfaced to survey the land, you'd see desolate stone, ochre and slate tones eroded by gales, devoid of vitality. The drama unfolds entirely below, in the depths, on the cusp of transformation. You're immersed in the Cambrian Sea, 540 million years in the past. Life has newly mastered the art of constructing forms, and with form came the inaugural evolutionary contest. A shape stirs in the haze before you, something bearing vision. The being ahead resembles an oddity. Roughly 7 centimeters in length, smaller than your palm, it seems pieced together from mismatched bits. Its frame is pliable and divided into sections, undulating through the currents like a languid streamer. Jutting from its spine are dual lines of sharp appendages, perhaps limbs, perhaps respiratory organs, or maybe wholly novel. Its front end, assuming that's accurate, sports paired eyes on stalks and an extendable trunk ending in a minute pincer. Meet Opabinia. When paleontologists unveiled its model at a 1972 conference, the crowd chuckled. They dismissed it as farce. No creature could possess such a form. It was excessively bizarre, too unlikely, too extraterrestrial. But Opabinia existed. It navigated these currents for eons, and besides certain contemporaries, it seemed downright ordinary. You've entered the Cambrian Ocean, 540 million years before now. The sea around you feels tepid and hazy, laden with bits of organic matter sinking from the brighter surface layers overhead. Sight lines are limited, perhaps just 10 meters in the best conditions. A dull, grayish layer of bacteria and algae blankets the ocean bottom, forming a vibrant yet static rug that's expanded virtually unaltered across 2 billion years. For the bulk of our planet's past, this simple existence dominated. Single-celled organisms, slimy microbes, serene, deliberate, and profoundly timeless. But, roughly 540 million years back, a shift occurred. Scientists term it the Cambrian explosion. Even if _quote _1 overstates the case. It spanned about 20 million years, a blink in geologic terms, yet an eternity from our perspective. During this era, nearly all the fundamental animal forms we recognize now debuted in the fossils. Vision emerged, exteriors toughened into shells, limbs gained flexibility, digestive tracts formed, and neural networks coalesced into what could charitably pass for a brain. For the first time on Earth, one creature eyed another and registered, quote, to us, hunting feels natural. Naturally, creatures devour one another. What alternative? Yet predation isn't a given. Life thrived for 3 billion years, sans it. Microbes drew sustenance directly from their surroundings. Photosynthetic algae harnessed solar energy. Bacterial films expanded gradually, vying for territory and essentials, through methods free of fangs, talons, or pursuits. True aggression was absent. The Cambrian era upended that. As organisms gained true mobility, powered by muscles, limbs, and purposeful navigation, a fresh dynamic arose. Resources could be sought out, captured, consumed while fresh and wriggling. This marked a turning point, and as with many upheavals, it sparked a cycle of escalation. As potential quarry, facing a pursuer leaves few choices. Conceal yourself, flee, develop protective casing, or turn toxic. All carry trade-offs, and natural selection probes them thoroughly over time. As a hunter, you're met with matching hurdles. Locate targets, seize them, overpower them, ingest them before rivals intervene. Each advance in evasion demands a counter in pursuit, and onward it spirals. This dynamic propels anatomical designs toward intricacy. It's the reason for eyes, intellects, extremities, and mandibles, not from complexity's intrinsic virtue, but because it prevails in an ecosystem of mutual consumption. Press onward into the gloom. Beneath lies the microbial blanket, pocked with tunnels and tracks from tiny fleshy beings that elude easy detection. Trilobites, those plated, jointed beasts set to rule the Paleozoic for 300 million years more, are only starting to thrive. They're ubiquitous on the bed, scuttling across the silt, their multifaceted eyes probing for sustenance and threats. These aren't the behemoths of the deep. Sizes vary from mere millimeters to around 20 centimeters by species. Certain kinds will bulk up later. The largest known, Isotales rex, hit 70 centimeters, though that's yet to come. For now, they're compact, plentiful, and thriving. Still their targets. A hunter stalks them, one that's colossal by Cambrian measures. The silhouette descends from higher up. It starts as a shadow blotting the water, a swirling obscurity defying the flow. Gradually, details sharpen. A sleek, broad form, driven by rippling flaps lining its flanks, reminiscent of squid fins. It stretches half a meter or beyond. Amid fauna mostly gauged in centimeters, it's a colossus. From its forward end protrude 2 limbs, arched and jointed, edged with hooks that mesh when clasped. They evoke a praying mantis's claws, yet supple and jointed enough to probe hiding spots and snatch trilobites from the mud. Even odder is the maw. Positioned beneath the skull, it's a round orifice, ringed by interlocking segments. As they tighten, it mimics a camera's aperture or a device's snapshot. This isn't biting as we know it. It merely constricts, flattens, pulverizes. Then come the optics, perched on protruding stems, each a multifaceted orb packing roughly 16,000 facets. Modern dragonflies, with their keenest vision among insects, boast about 30,000 per eye. Anomalocaris came remarkably close. This moment takes us back 540 million years to an era when eyes were still a fresh evolutionary breakthrough. Meet Anomalocaris, the bizarre, shrimp-like beast. Its name stems from a classic case of paleontological mix-up. In the early days, scientists discovered its grasping limbs separately and assumed they belonged to shrimp-style crustaceans. That round mouth got labeled a jellyfish, the main body, a sea cucumber. For almost 100 years, Anomalocaris lingered in research papers as three distinct creatures. Then, in 1985, paleontologist Harry Whittington took a fresh look at specimens from the Burgess Shale, a stunning sight in the Canadian Rockies that captured soft-bodied Cambrian life in stunning clarity, and pieced it together. The so-called shrimp, jellyfish, and sea cucumber were just components of a single creature. Anomalocaris wasn't a trio of tiny beings. It was a massive one, Earth's inaugural top predator. The label quote 3 is contemporary jargon, but the idea endures across time. Every habitat features a dominant force that preys on others yet rarely falls victim itself. Think lions ruling the Serengeti or orcas commanding the Arctic seas. In the Cambrian waters, that role fell to Anomalocaris. The biggest examples stretched to about a meter long, modest next to future oceanic behemoths, yet gigantic relative to its peers. It outpaced everything around it in vision, speed through the water, and grip strength. It carved out an unprecedented role, the active pursuer. Experts once believed Anomalocaris mainly hunted trilobites, pulverizing their exoskeletons with its odd circular mouth. Evidence from fossilized trilobites shows gashes shaped like the predator's bite. It appeared settled science. But newer analyses have muddied the waters. Models of its mouth mechanics indicate those plates might have lacked the power to shatter tough shells. They bent rather than broke, capable of compressing but not demolishing. Now, some researchers propose it went after squishier targets like worms or jellyfish, or creatures lacking defenses, and perhaps fed on weakened or deceased trilobites instead of prime ones. The discussion rages on. One certainty stands. Anomalocaris marked a revolutionary shift. It served as the prototype, showing the seas could sustain a big, mobile hunter, reliant on sharp eyesight. All that followed, sharks, mosasaurs, orcas, built on this foundational concept. The Cambrian Ocean functioned like an evolutionary workshop, where natural selection experimented with forms akin to an inventor's trial runs exploring uncharted designs. The majority of these trials flopped. Opabinia, with its cluster of 5 eyes and probing front nozzle, produced no heirs. Hallucigenia, so otherworldly that experts first assembled it, inverted, links to no modern lineage. Wiwaxia, armored in plates and spikes, puzzled classifiers for generations. These weren't flops in an ethical way. They thrived, bred, and filled slots in thriving food chains. They just didn't spawn enduring branches over the subsequent 500 million years. Evolution's draw feels harsh and random. Thriving in your time offers no promise your offspring will fare as well in theirs. Yet certain designs persisted. Arthropods, forebears of bugs, arachnids, and crabs, burst forth from the Cambrian and thrived onward. Mollusks, chordates, echinoderms, all rooted in this era of bold trials. Trilobites held strong too, ruling the seafloor for 300 more million years, weathering 2 global wipeouts before vanishing in the Permian extinction. Their multifaceted vision, jointed armor, and knack for curling into protective spheres all honed in the Cambrian forge. The Cambrian burst didn't conclude dramatically, but eased into stability. Frenzied innovation shifted to refinement. Winning forms proliferated. The rest slipped away unnoticed. Around 485 million years ago, as the period wrapped, the seas resembled something more familiar. Not so extraterrestrial, but a balanced network of chasers and chased, with a food chain echoing today's. By then, Anomalocaris had vanished, its line dissolving into obscurity, supplanted by fresh hunters sporting innovative builds. The slot it invented, the top predator's domain, endured, always claimed by some successor. Future titans diverged notably, boasting a feature Anomalocaris missed: jaws, real ones with hinges, not merely a clamping maw or scraping appendage, an instrument designed for clamping, ripping, clutching, and slaying. The emergence of the jaw utterly transformed the seas. Time on our planet advances steadily. The surrounding waters begin to alter once more, growing a touch cooler while clarity increases. As particles from the sediment gradually sink, those microbial layers pull back, giving way to clusters of odd, plume-like life forms rooted firmly to the ocean bed. The Cambrian era fades into the distance. Next comes the Ordovician, followed by the Curian. Fish are undergoing changes. At present they remain tiny without jaws, seemingly trivial. That status won't endure. A breakthrough in predation is on the horizon. The jaw wasn't inevitable. Over the 100 million years post-Cambrian, fish managed fine without it. These were gentle-mouthed beings, lacking jaws, sustaining themselves through sucking, abrading, or sifting tiny bits from the currents. Certain types latched onto bigger creatures and gnawed at skin using circles of minuscule denticles. Others sucked up debris from the bottom. Not a single one possessed the ability to chomp. Should you have explored the Silurian seas circa 430 million years back, you'd encounter these jawless fish in abundance. Slender and serpentine, they zipped anxiously amid the waves or burrowed into the muck. In their niche, they thrived. They'd weathered the end-order wipeout, which eradicated roughly 85% of ocean dwellers. Evidently, their strategies worked, yet they lacked a crucial element, one poised to reshape the entire ecosystem. The jaw rose from gill arches. At first glance, that seems unlikely, but reflection reveals its logic. These arches form the skeletal or gristly frames that secure a fish's gills. Arched elements positioned aft of the mouth, serving no grander role than stabilizing breathing surfaces. In the forebears of jawed species, the foremost arch started shifting anteriorly. It developed a pivot, it gained mobility. Across eons, this evolved into a novel feature, a seizing mechanism positioned before the visage. Such shifts are commonplace in evolution. Features initially suited to one function, adapt to entirely different ones. Air bladders turn into breathing organs. Limb-like fins transform into limbs. Gill supports morph into biting mechanisms. The building blocks linger, ready for reconfiguration. The jaw upended the marine dynamics. Armed with it, predators could capture quarry and retain their grasp. They could shred meat off skeletons. They could pulverize protective casings. They could counter threats far more aggressively than mere evasion. Jawless varieties foraged amid remains. Jawed ones pursued aggressively. The Deonian era, spanning 419 to 359 million years prior, is occasionally dubbed the Age of Fishes. That label falls short. Fish weren't just prevalent then. They rose to supremacy. They splintered into varieties unimaginable from the prior 100 million years. They assembled the bodily framework that land vertebrates rely on still. And ruling this transformed realm, clad in plating, enormous and relentlessly savage, were the placoderms. These waters differ markedly from Cambrian times. You're gliding above a modest reef in the equatorial zones of a globe, whose outlines bear no resemblance to today's charts. Land masses huddle in bizarre arrangements. Proto-North America sits close to the tropics, while the precursors to Europe and Africa dot the southern expanses. Temperatures hover around 28 degrees Celsius, and the liquid is pristine, revealing the depth some 30 meters down. No coral forms this structure. Modern-style coral won't appear for 200 million more years. Instead, strumataperoids, coral-resembling builders, deposit lime and accumulate across ages into vast dome-like formations. They protrude from the depths like submerged knolls draped in algal growths, crinoid fronds, and unfamiliar tiny-shelled fauna. Fish swarm the area. Plated varieties abound, known as placerms for their scale-like hide. The term fits precisely. Their skulls and upper bodies wear fused bony segments, linked at the shoulders, evoking ironclad warriors from old tales. Some span mere hand widths, others grow bigger. A handful tower impressively. Spot one of the bigger specimens ahead. It lounges on the substrate, partly obscured by a strumataperoid bulk. Initially, it resembles a dull, craggy stone, inert. Then motion stirs. A fin lashes. Paired eyes recessed in plated hollows turn your way. The creature lifts off the bed, and you grasp how vastly you'd underestimated its scale. Dunleosteus terrelli wasn't the biggest placoderm. Other kinds might have stretched further. Still, it boasted the heaviest defenses. In Deonian waters, such fortification outweighed mere size. For years, media tales portrayed Dunkleosteus as a 10-meter behemoth, a vehicle-sized terror prowling primordial oceans. New studies have scaled back those figures significantly. The creature likely grew to about 3 or 4 meters at most. Impressive in size, yet far from the colossal beast featured in outdated educational materials. The mix-up stemmed from the fact that just the plated sections of Dunkleosteus fossils tend to endure. The other parts, likely shielded by pliable skin or tiny scales, seldom fossilize. Initial researchers examined the imposing head and made assumptions. They overestimated quite a bit. There's no debate over the head structure itself. Dunkleosteus lacked any teeth. After all, teeth are delicate. They shatter, come loose, and demand ongoing renewal. Dunkleosteus bypassed this issue entirely by skipping teeth. Rather, its jawbones protruded as razor-edged blades that sharpened themselves, since the top and bottom surfaces rubbed together with each mouth closure, refining the edges much like a cook sharpening a blade on whetstone. Experts have analyzed the mechanics of that chomp in detail. The cranium consisted of 4 connected segments functioning via a 4-bar linkage system, the kind of mechanism technicians apply in items ranging from vehicle shocks to collapsible seats. When Dunkleosteus parted its jaws, it wasn't merely lowering the mandible. The whole skull rearranged. The neck arched upward, the lower jaw swung downward and ahead, and the maw stretched open in an action lasting roughly 20 milliseconds. That's remarkably swift. By contrast, a person's eye blink spans 300 to 400 milliseconds. Dunkleosteus managed to widen its mouth, generate suction, and draw in quarry, all before your lash even starts to drop. Estimates put its biting pressure at 4,400 to 7,400 newtons, varying by spot on the jaw. To put it in perspective, an adult great white shark delivers about 18,000 newtons, while a big saltwater crocodile hits around 16,000. Dunkleosteus wasn't the mightiest snapper ever. It didn't have to be. Amid rivals like toothless fish and squishy-bodied critters, 7,000 newtons seemed overkill. Imagine wielding a massive hammer in a cushion brawl. The Devonian seas turned into a fierce competition, with protective gear as the key asset. Nearly everything sported it. Placoderms were wrapped in bony casings. Ostracoderms, those jawless swimmers that had grown their own armor, featured scaly barriers and guards. Even primitive sharks, which later ditched heavy protection, toyed with skeletal reinforcements back then. The reasoning was simple. Facing hunters, quarry could flee, conceal itself, or endure hits. Armor represented the endurance approach. It held up until jaws powerful enough to breach it appeared. Dunkleosteus became the breaker. Its auto-honing edges sliced bony shields as readily as meat. Evidence from placoderm fossils shows chew patterns aligning perfectly with Dunkleosteus mouth dimensions. Certain casualties were fellow Dunkleosteus individuals. The group evidently resorted to eating its own kind when chances presented. The rivalry intensified. Targeted animals built tougher shells, quicker speeds, spikier safeguards. Hunters crafted firmer bites, slyer strikes, bigger frames. This loop sustained itself across 50 million years, yielding seas teeming with creatures resembling war machines from a defense firm. Eventually, the loop halted. The late Devonian wipeout ranks among the oddest disasters in planetary history. Rather than one blow, it progressed in stages across about 20 million years. Spanning roughly 375 to 359 million years back, lineages faded in surges, punctuated by short respites, akin to a heartbeat, faltering, reviving, faltering once more, then quitting for good. When the dust settled, up to 75% of species might have been lost. Stromatoporoid formations crumbled. Trilobites, resilient through prior mass die-offs, suffered hugely. They staggered forward for 100 million more years but lost their past variety forever. Placoderms didn't stagger anywhere. They erased outright. All varieties, every plated fortress, every Dunkleosteus, every intricate bony safeguard, obliterated. The purge was so absolute that experts once figured placoderms were doomed evolutionary misfires, subpar swimmers simply overshadowed by better versions. That view is likely off base. Placoderms weren't flops. They ruled the Devonian for 50 million years. They occupied every habitat, from top hunters to seafloor sifters. Their downfall wasn't a verdict on their prowess. It was a disaster, a sudden jolt that wiped them out no matter their prior success. The trigger is still under discussion. Shifts in climate played a clear role. The world was growing colder. Ice sheets began to build in the southern regions. As sea levels fell, the shallow coastal platforms, prime habitats for placoderms, were laid bare. Oxygen starvation in the oceans played a role too. A widespread drop in dissolved oxygen levels could have choked off life across huge swaths of the deep sea floor. Regardless of the exact mix of triggers, the outcome was total devastation. Those armored fishes vanished completely. The Devonian period drew to a close. Lurking in the shadows, enduring the disaster through tiny, overlooked forms, were the forebears of nearly all future marine life. Sharks had already made their appearance. They'd been around since the Devonians' early days. Modest and unremarkable, eclipsed by the dominant placoderms. Their frames consisted of cartilage rather than bone, which doesn't preserve well in the fossil record. Thus, evidence of primitive sharks comes in bits and pieces. Isolated teeth and fin spines embedded sporadically in stone layers. With the placoderms gone, sharks branched out into new varieties. Rather than growing protective plating, they pursued an alternate strategy, emphasizing agility, adaptability, senses honed across eons, and a system for shedding and regrowing teeth, like an endless chain of razor edges. To keep their jaws lethal, they stepped into the role of top hunters in the seas. In various guises, they have dominated that spot for some 360 million years. They weathered the Permian mass extinction, the deadliest crisis our planet has faced. They outlasted the impact that wiped out the dinosaurs. Today, they persist, prowling and claiming the predatory realm once ruled by Dunkleosteus. The ray-finned fishes endured as well, the progenitors of tuna, salmon, and the overwhelming bulk of modern fish species. Unlike sharks, they followed a separate developmental route, evolving gas-filled bladders for better flotation, rigid, bony frameworks for support, and an array of body shapes that ultimately positioned them as Earth's most abundant backbone-bearing creatures. The marine realm had undergone a profound reboot. The former overlords were no more. Fresh lineages were ascending. Meanwhile, along the bottom and in the shallows, another transformation was underway, one unrelated to finned swimmers. In the balmy, well-oxygenated shallows of a Devonian marshland, a certain fish ventured onto solid ground. Its paired fins were thick and paddle-like, strong enough to support its body. Its lung-like bladder allowed it to gulp air directly from above the surface. This wasn't a permanent exodus from the water, not by a long shot. It was merely a tentative exploration of the coastline, probing the possibilities of dry land. That trial would require another century of millions of years to fully unfold. In time, the offspring of that pioneering swimmer would give rise to amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. Among those reptiles, some would gaze back at the watery world their forebears had left behind and choose to return. Upon doing so, they'd evolve into the grandest hunters the globe had ever known. The era of seagoing reptiles loomed on the horizon. Winters on the Dorset shoreline in 1811 were savage. Relentless gales surged across the English Channel, eroding great slabs from the bluffs and hurling them down to the strand. For the folks of Lyme Regis, this meant little more than aggravation. Landslides clogging paths, vessels trapped in port, and an unending chill that soaked through every corner of life. But for young Mary Anning, just 12 years old, it presented a chance. Her dad had worked as a carpenter, yet he eked out extra cash by scavenging oddities from the escarpments, unusual rocks that visitors snapped up as mementos. Mostly spiral-shelled ammonites, though occasionally something more peculiar. When he passed away the year before, saddling the household with debts, Mary and her sibling Joseph stepped in to carry on the business. No one understood those bluffs like they did. They could pinpoint the strata rich in preserved remains, the stones that fractured neatly, the inclines safe enough to scale in the storm's aftermath. They recognized that prime hunting came immediately after the surf pulled back, when new finds lay revealed on the shore, untouched by rivals or tides. One overcast dawn that year, Joseph noticed an odd shape jutting from a toppled chunk of lime rock. A slender, elongated cranium, packed with fangs ringed by orbital cavities, so vast they appeared suited to some alien beast. He noted the location and headed back. The bone was too deeply lodged for swift removal, and the water was advancing. Over the ensuing weeks and months, Mary came back solo into the biting chill. Armed with mallets and blades, she chipped away patiently, unveiling bit by bit of the buried frame. What she uncovered stretched about 5 meters. It featured a bill-like muzzle, akin to a swordfish, jaws reminiscent of a croc. Limb positions transformed into flippers, and those gigantic orbs, designed, as experts would later clarify, for pursuing prey in lightless abyssal depths. She had no idea what creature it represented. No one did. The scholars who studied it in due course dubbed it Ichthyosaurus, quote 4, a name that evoked its bizarre nature, but shed no light on its true essence. Clearly a reptile, yet it had adapted so thoroughly to the sea that it resembled a tuna far more than any lizard. At just 12 years old, Mary Anning could hardly read at all. Over the following 36 years, she extracted extraordinary beasts from those very cliffs, the initial intact plesiosaur, Britain's earliest pterosaur, and a multitude of ichthyosaurs varying in dimensions and types. She pinpointed coprolites, those fossilized droppings, and grasped how they unveiled the diets of long-extinct creatures. She exchanged letters with the era's leading experts, pointing out their mistakes and providing samples they couldn't acquire on their own. The Geological Society of London never welcomed her as a member. Women simply weren't permitted. When researchers drew on her finds for their publications, they frequently omitted any acknowledgement of her role. Breast cancer claimed her in 1847, at age 47, leaving her impoverished and still scouring the cliffs for fossils. The beings she unearthed would fundamentally alter our understanding of Earth's biological timeline. They demonstrated that the seas had once been dominated by gigantic predators originating from terrestrial realms. The Permian extinction, striking 252 million years back, brought life perilously close to utter destruction. 96% of marine species disappeared. Volcanic activity seems to have triggered it, with the Siberian traps unleashing vast quantities of carbon dioxide that sparked uncontrollable global heating, acidification of the waters, and severe oxygen shortages everywhere. The seas turned scorching, corrosive, and nearly airless. Intricate food webs built up across hundreds of millions of years. Coral structures, schools of fish, swarms of invertebrates crumbled virtually overnight. Rebuilding took ages. For countless millennia, the oceans were overrun by what biologists term disaster taxa, hardy opportunists that flourish amid ruin, much like weeds overtaking a war-torn urban landscape. The dominant Paleozoic lineages had vanished. Fresh rulers needed to emerge. Reptiles stood poised for the opportunity. Originating on land from amphibian forebears some 320 million years ago, they gained watertight hides and eggs with rigid shells, unshackling them from the aquatic breeding requirements that still bound amphibians. As fish commanded the waves and amphibians huddled in marshlands, reptiles fanned out over the land masses, evolving into herbivores and carnivores, burrowers and tree scramblers alike. Once the Permian event cleared out the oceans, certain lineages eyed the waters and committed to the shift. This re-entry unfolded repeatedly across various branches over eons. Ichthyosaurs led the charge, surfacing in the early Triassic, merely 10 million years post-extinction, and adapting to aquatic existence more swiftly than nearly any other vertebrate group in history. Primitive ichthyosaurs retained a lizard-like form, short limbs, extended tails, evident as recent terrestrial wanderers. But in a mere 3 million years, metamorphosis struck. Limbs morphed into flippers. Tails sprouted upright flukes for thrust. Bodies narrowed into sleek arrow-like profiles built for velocity. Their likeness to dolphins borders on the surreal. Dolphins belong to mammals, ichthyosaurs to reptiles. Over 250 million years of divergent evolution trace back to utterly distinct origins. Still, they converged on virtually the same physique. The back fin, the tapered beak, the sleek hide, the curved tail fin. The sea enforces a blueprint for swift predatory swimmers, and natural selection rediscovers it time and again. Shonisaurus sicaniensis, unearthed in British Columbia, stretched to 21 meters, matching a sperm whale's span, its skull exceeding 2 meters by itself. For all its enormity, it likely fed by suction, slurping up squid and tiny fish instead of chomping bigger quarry. For Shonisaurus, bulk served efficiency and body heat management, not raw ferocity. Certain ichthyosaurs turned downright ferocious. Tremontosaurus boasted eyeballs as wide as dinner plates, the biggest relative to frame among all recorded vertebrates, geared for pursuits in the faint glow of abyssal depths. Fresh examinations of preserved soft tissues indicate it bore a blubbery coating, honed for quiet gliding, embodying a covert hunter that could emerge from shadows undetected by its quarry. In 2020, 11-year-old Ruby Reynolds strolled a Somerset, England beach alongside her dad. That shoreline's renown stems from its fossil riches. Hugging the Jurassic coast, a UNESCO World Heritage gem where relentless erosion from the bluffs lays bare prehistoric skeletons for any diligent searcher. 2 centuries prior, Mary Anning had combed these same stretches. The custom of casual fossil prospecting persisted unbroken. Ruby spotted a fragment of bone. It required the assistance of both Ruby and her father to transport the substantial bone fragment. They reached out to Dean Lomax, a paleontologist with extensive experience researching ichthyosaurs. Ruby's discovery turned out to be a jawbone. In the years that followed, additional fragments surfaced from the identical location. Once Lomax and his team pieced them together, they uncovered an extraordinary specimen, a creature potentially surpassing 25 meters in length, outstripping Shonosaurus and any prior marine reptile on record, and perhaps even matching the blue whale in size. They dubbed it Ichthyotitan severnensis, the immense fish lizard from the Severn. The find was revealed to the public in 2024. To date, only jawbones have surfaced, concealed within the cliffs or dispersed along the remnants of a long-lost Triassic seafloor. The remaining skeleton might still await discovery. At the time, Ruby Reynolds was just 11 years old. Mary Anning had been 12 when she unearthed her initial ichthyosaur, separated by 2 centuries. These 2 young girls each drew ancient sea dragons from the rock. Plesiosaurs approached ocean life in a distinct way. Unlike the speed-oriented ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs prioritized agility. Their wide, turtle-like forms were driven forward by 4 powerful flippers that executed intricate figure-8 motions, allowing them to glide through the water like flyers rather than mere swimmers. This enabled tight turns, sudden reversals, and stationary hovering to hunt for food. 2 primary forms developed among them. Plesiosauromorphs featured compact heads paired with necks of absurd length, defying basic anatomy. Elasmosaurus, for instance, stretched to 14 meters overall, with more than half that devoted to its neck, 7 meters of spine, comprising 71 vertebrae, the highest count in any known creature. When the initial Elasmosaurus skeleton was reconstructed in 1868, the scientists mistakenly placed the skull at the tail end, mistaking the elongated neck for a tail. Plesiosauromorphs, by contrast, favored brevity in necks and enormous heads with jaws designed for brute force over extension. Leopleurodon, despite years of media hype, likely topped out at 6 to 7 meters. Kronosaurus, unearthed in Australia and Colombia, boasted a 2.7-meter skull, armed with banana-sized teeth. Pliosaurus funke, informally called Predator X after its Norwegian fragments, could have hit 15 meters and delivered a bite stronger than any terrestrial carnivore. For more than 100 million years, plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs coexisted in Mesozoic seas, occupying separate roles with unique tactics and targets. Ichthyosaurs acted as the ancient ocean's speedy, sight-based chasers. Plesiosaurs showed greater diversity. Some lay in wait as bottom dwellers for ambushes, while others patrolled open waters, using extended necks to grab fish from groups undetected. Then, about 94 million years ago, a change occurred. Ichthyosaurs vanished gradually, not through a sudden catastrophe, but via a drawn-out decline, with variety dwindling, groups contracting, and species fading sequentially until all were gone. The Cenomanian-Turonian boundary, marked by ocean oxygen shortages and warmer conditions, might have sealed their fate, or they could have been edged out by emerging rivals. Mosasaurs appeared abruptly, though not from thin air. They descended from modest semi-aquatic lizards akin to today's monitor species, which inhabited coasts and preyed on fish in coastal shallows. Their nearest modern kin include snakes and Komodo dragons. They ventured into full marine existence relatively late, around 85 million years ago, long after ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs had dominated. Logically, they ought to have been overshadowed by those veterans refined for sea living over 100 million years. Yet they dominated instead. In just 20 million years, mosasaurs proliferated into numerous types and colonized every global ocean. Mosasaurus hoffmanni grew to 17 meters, sporting a skull like a siege weapon and jaws that dislocated snake-like. Tylosaurus matched it in size with a reinforced snout, possibly for battering competitors or meals. Lesser mosasaurs adapted to all niches, from coastal lurkers to deep-sea pursuers. Their edge lay in versatility. Unlike rigid designs, mosasaurs evolved rapidly, experimenting with forms and discarding failures. Tooth shapes differed sharply across kinds, piercing spikes for fish, crushing molars for shells, or hooked slicers for ripping meat. As adaptable opportunists amid rigid experts, they seized any openings. The earliest mosasaur skull emerged in 1764 from a chalk pit near Maastricht in the Netherlands. Its immense, bizarre nature left experts debating its identity for years. Was it a whale, perhaps a crocodile, or maybe some sort of dragon? During the French Revolutionary Forces invasion of the Netherlands in 1794, soldiers made a point of pursuing the fossil, promising 600 bottles of wine to whoever seized it. Georges Cuvier, the French naturalist who later established paleontology as a science, studied the skull and identified it as belonging to a sea-dwelling lizard, a creature without any modern counterpart, one that had clearly perished long ago. This marked an early scientific proof that extinction truly happens, that entire species could disappear from the planet forever. Prior to Cuvier, many scholars believed that all creatures from the past must persist somewhere in the world today. The Maastricht mosasaur played a key role in disproving that notion. For some 30 million years, mosasaurs held sway over the seas. They coexisted with plesiosaurs, enormous sea turtles, and massive sharks. Yet they reigned supreme. No predator preyed on them. No rival threatened their control. Over successive millions of years, they increased in size, perfecting their forms and expanding into fresh habitats. Then, 66 million years ago, on a typical day in the region that's now the Gulf of Mexico, a mountain-sized asteroid plummeted from space. The Chicxulub impactor slammed into the Yucatan Peninsula at about 20 kilometers per second. The blast unleashed energy rivaling billions of atomic bombs. Towering tsunamis reaching hundreds of meters surged across the Atlantic. Raging fires erupted across all continents. Soot and rubble clogged the skies, shutting out the sun for months or even years. The mosasaurs perished. Plesiosaurs vanished. Ammonites, survivors of 4 prior mass extinctions, were wiped out. On land, virtually every creature weighing more than roughly 25 kilograms met the same fate. Non-avian dinosaurs, masters of land environments for 165 million years, came to an end. The era of reptiles had closed. Once the haze cleared, the seas fell eerily silent. Empty spaces awaited new occupants. The mighty ocean empires built up over 180 million years had all been obliterated in a mere geological blink. Nature abhors a vacuum. Something was bound to step in. Along the edges of a healing planet, tiny fur-covered beings scented the breeze, gazing toward the surf, starting to ponder the possibilities beneath the waves 52 million years ago, in the gentle nearshore waters of present-day Pakistan. A wolf-like animal was adapting to swimming. It wasn't impressive. Roughly the build of a big dog, with an extended muzzle and limbs suited to terra firma but awkward in the depths. It foraged in the shallows, lunging at fish, then scampering back as tides advanced. Remarkably, its ears picked up sounds underwater, an odd trait for a terrestrial beast. foreshadowing future changes. Scientists name it Pachycetus. It bore no resemblance to a whale, sporting fur, 4 sturdy legs, and dentition ideal for snatching fish from stream edges. Spotting it frolicking in those Eocene shallows, no one would predict its offspring evolving into Earth's biggest beasts ever. Evolution keeps its intentions hidden, shifting from land to ocean ranks among the boldest evolutionary paths, and we're lucky to trace it closely, thanks to an exceptional fossil archive. Pachycetus evolved into Ambulocetus, the walking whale, about 49 million years back. Stretching 3 meters, crocodile-esque in form, Ambulocetus managed both walking on solid ground and propelling through water with its enlarged rear feet as flippers. It hunted by surprise, hiding in cloudy coastal zones to strike at unsuspecting victims. Rhodhocetus followed around 47 million years ago. Its pelvic bone had detached from the backbone, a vital shift allowing freer tail movement for propulsion. Rear legs lingered but dwindled, morphing into flippers instead of supports for weight. Rhodhocetus likely couldn't trek far ashore anymore. Dry land faded into the past. Basilosaurus sealed the shift. At 20 meters, sleek and snake-like, it was purely oceanic. Its back legs had reduced to minuscule remnants. Useless stubs nestled along the flanks, hidden externally, existing solely as echoes of terrestrial origins. Quote 6 was its misleading moniker. Initial experts figured such an oddity had to be reptilian. Basilosaurus pioneered giant proportions among whales. Its varied teeth, pointed up front, jagged behind, suggested feasts on substantial quarry. It likely devoured fellow sea mammals. Far from docile or serene, it was a fierce hunter, claiming the realm left open by mosasaurs some 20 million years prior. In under 15 million years, a riverbank fish grabber the size of a hound transformed into a 20-meter oceanic terror. That's the power of evolution when vast seas lie vacant and ripe. Whales proliferated, branching into 2 major groups. Toothed whales retained the fierce predatory traits of Basilosaurus, while developing echolocation capabilities. Baleen whales, on the other hand, ditched teeth altogether, replacing them with keratin-based comb-like structures that strain tiny prey from ocean water. From the toothed group emerged dolphins and porpoises, beaked whales and sperm whales. These animals spread across all the seas, mastering the art of navigating pitch-black depth through echolocation and evolving brains of such intricate sophistication that experts continue to debate if certain kinds could be considered sentient beings. Baleen whales followed a separate route, growing to colossal proportions. Back in 2008, a team of paleontologists excavating the Pisco Ica Desert in southern Peru unearthed a skull that defied all existing classifications. That arid region was once a gentle coastal sea, packed with fossils from a vibrant marine world that flourished about 12 million years ago. Whale skeletons, shark fangs, fragments of a long-lost food web. The scientists anticipated routine discoveries, but what turned up was pure horror. The cranium stretched 3 meters. It featured enormous teeth in both the upper and lower jaws, unlike today's sperm whales, with each one reaching 36 centimeters long, comparable to wine bottles, marking the biggest chompers ever recorded in any creature. They dubbed it Leviathan melvillae, Leviathan after the legendary biblical Leviathan, and Melvillae honoring Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick, who captured the awe-inspiring dread of whales more profoundly than any researcher. Leviathan was a type of sperm whale, yet worlds apart from the one swimming now. Contemporary sperm whales sport teeth solely in the lower jaw, mainly for snagging squid. Leviathans were planted in both jaws, huge interlocking crushers built for holding and shredding. Its reinforced cranium hinted at headbutting attacks. It ignored squid in favor of pursuing fellow whales. Artists' renderings depict a beast measuring 13 to 17 meters, on par with a current sperm whale's bulk, but engineered for an entirely alien role. While modern sperm whales plunge into abyssal voids for solitary hunts, Leviathan lurked closer to the waves, preying on defenseless baleen whales too massive yet too vulnerable to fend off such a brutal hunter. For around 5 million years, Leviathan dominated the shallows off South America's shores. Then, roughly 5 million years back, it vanished without a trace. Explanations remain elusive. Perhaps global warming shifts, dwindling food sources, or rival pressures. The seas were growing chillier as Earth slid into the ice ages that sculpted the Pliocene era. Countless massive ocean hunters faded away amid this upheaval, and Leviathan wasn't even the biggest. One such fossil, a 17-centimeter tooth, jagged along both sides and as broad as a person's hand, eventually drifted ashore at some forgotten coastal spot. Its origins faded into legend, traded among collectors and oddity hunters, before landing with a keen-eyed naturalist who identified it properly. It came from a shark, an absolutely gigantic one. Such relics weren't new. Medieval folk in Europe swore they were petrified dragon tongues. During the Renaissance, intellectuals labeled them glossopetri, tongue stones, and puzzled over whether they sprouted in the Earth's depths or plummeted from the heavens amid moon eclipses. In 1667, Danish doctor Nicholas Steno cut open a great white shark's head and saw its dentition match those odd rocks perfectly. No mythical origins here, just shark teeth. And finding them locked in mountaintop stone, proved those peaks had lain beneath ancient waves, implying a planet vastly more ancient and bizarre than supposed. Still, the supersized versions puzzled everyone. Obviously shark-derived, but nothing alive boasted such scale. Their owner had to have been a titan. In 1835, Swiss biologist Louis Agassiz formally christened it Carcharodon megalodon, the big-toothed shark. He figured it was essentially an oversized great white. Today's DNA studies muddle that view. Megalodon likely fits the genus Otodus and shares little direct kinship with great whites. The similarities arose through parallel evolution, both lines honing comparable forms to tackle the same challenges: vast endothermic quarry. Size projections have evolved too. Long ago, experts scaled up from dental evidence and white shark analogies, pegging it at 15 to 18 meters. Immense, yet not unheard of. That changed with a 2025 analysis by 29 specialists who pored over museum-held vertebrae, crunched biomechanical simulations, and scrutinized every scrap of data. Their updated top estimate, 24.3 meters, nearly 80 feet, rivaling a bowling lane's length and edging toward blue whale territory. Even the physique got a rethink. Past depictions cast Megalodon as a beefed-up, barrel-chested great white. Recent reconstructions point to a sleeker form designed for extended voyages across vast seas instead of sudden strikes. Megalodon wasn't built for short bursts of speed. Rather, it was an endurance predator, able to traverse entire ocean regions while pursuing food sources. Those targets were primarily whales. Remains of ancient whales bear clear impressions from megalodon jaws. Profound scars align perfectly with the jagged edges of its enormous dentition. Certain specimens display evidence of recovery, indicating the victim endured the assault. In most cases, though, survival wasn't an option. Megalodon and Leviathan shared the same eras and territories. Over countless millennia, the biggest carnivorous shark and the mightiest carnivorous whale prowled identical seas, vying for identical quarry. Direct proof of clashes between them is lacking. All we possess is confirmation of their shared existence. Both stood as ultimate hunters, pushing the boundaries of evolutionary possibility. The Pliocene era offered no mercy to colossal beings. Around 3.5 million years back, the planet underwent swift chilling. The Isthmus of Panama emerged from the waves, linking North and South America and severing the tropical flows that once linked the Atlantic and Pacific. Worldwide sea patterns shifted dramatically. Climates cooled. Polar ice caps expanded. Baleen whales, the staple diet Megalodon relied upon, evolved to thrive in frigid polar realms teeming with sustenance. Rising currents from the depths delivered nourishment, sparking enormous swarms of krill and tiny fish. The whales trailed this bounty. They ventured poleward into zones too chilly for Megalodon to penetrate. Megalodon thrived in temperate coastal zones. Its offspring hatched in protected inshore areas, calm lagoons with balmy temperatures and minimal threats. With declining sea levels and plummeting warmth, those breeding grounds eroded away. Mature individuals couldn't pursue their quarry into icy depths. The lineage was cornered, ill-suited for cold pursuits and overly tied to fading environments to evolve. Rivalry likely hastened the downfall. Great white sharks, though diminutive, yet more resilient to chill, broadened their habitats. Orcas started ascending as top hunters, clever group-oriented predators that operated in teams and showed no fear. By 3.6 million years ago, Megalodon had vanished. History's grandest hunting shark had commanded the seas for 20 million years. Its end came not through battle or a cataclysmic confrontation, but via the gradual grip of evolving weather patterns. Its food sources relocated, its breeding sites evaporated, its domain turned unforgiving. Those iconic teeth continue to surface on coastlines. They persist in doing so. Kids discover them along Florida and North Carolina beaches, Moroccan coastlines, and Malta's rugged bluffs. Dark, weighty, and razor-edged even after eons. These relics endure as the sole traces of a beast that once instilled dread in the deep. One persistent query merits a straightforward reply. Might Megalodon linger today? Absolutely not. The notion captivates the imagination. The seas stretch endlessly and plunge profoundly. One might assume, surely, such a monster could lurk in submerged chasms and shadowy voids, evading all human probes. Scrutiny reveals the flaws in this reasoning. Megalodon demanded tropical shallows and plentiful whale populations. The abyssal depths provide none of that. They are frigid, lightless, and barren of essentials. A 24-meter behemoth couldn't sustain itself on the meager offerings down there. It would wither from hunger. Crucially, we'd detect it. A group of enormous sharks targeting whales across the high seas would generate unmistakable signs. Jaws imprinted on whale remains, dentition strewn along beaches, observations from vessels and anglers. The marine expanse is immense, yet far from unseen. Humanity has navigated its surface for ages. Here, the lack of traces truly signals extinction. Back in 2013, the Discovery Channel broadcast a special implying Megalodon endured. It was pure invention masquerading as fact, deceiving far too many audiences. Polls later revealed about 70% of people thought its persistence plausible. It isn't. The colossus is extinct. Lingering are dentition pieces dotting sandy edges, display cases in institutions, and the realization that the deep once harbored a wondrous, yet fearsome, entity. Megalodon's demise created an opening at the pinnacle of oceanic predation. No successor claimed it fully. None matched its proportions. The great white reaches 6 meters at most, merely a quarter the span of an adult megalodon. Orcas rank as potent hunters, yet they function as communal beings, coordinating in groups instead of lone titans. The realm Megalodon once terrorized transformed into a domain lacking a singular overlord. Within this subdued seascape, relieved of a 24-meter terror's shadow, baleen whales commenced their expansion. The blue whale stands not merely as today's biggest creature, it stands as the biggest creature to have ever lived, surpassing every dinosaur, every sea reptile, and even Megalodon, measuring 30 meters long and weighing 200 tons. Its heart rivals the size of an automobile, pulsing once every 10 seconds. The blue whale only reached such immense proportions after Megalodon vanished from the scene. For countless millions of years, extreme size had spelled trouble. A bigger whale just meant an easier meal. But once the top hunter was out of the picture, the dynamics shifted entirely. Enormous scale turned into a clear benefit. Superior heat management in frigid seas, smoother long-distance travels, plus the ability to tap into krill clusters far beyond the reach of tinier rivals. The demise of that colossal beast paved the way for this titan to thrive. That's the ocean's rhythm. Cycles of intensity and relief. Colossi ascend. Colossi tumble, and fresh ones emerge to fill the voids. The whole system stays in flux, unfolding like a drawn-out saga, across eons with parts reshuffled time and again. Right now, the blue whale holds the spotlight, but it won't claim it forever. The ocean has teetered on the brink of annihilation 5 separate times. Over the last 500 million years, catastrophe has struck 5 times in ways that shattered everything. Think massive volcanic outflows, asteroid strikes, or drastic changes in seawater composition. In each instance, most ocean life wiped out. The huge species always dropped first. Yet the sea clawed back from the remnants every round, and inevitably, bold new behemoths stepped up to replace their predecessors. This isn't random luck. It's a clear cycle. The layers of fossils tell a tale much like a medical log for someone who repeatedly codes and gets pulled back from the edge. Ordovician Silurian extinction, 445 million years ago. 85% of sea life erased. Late Devonian extinction, 375 million years ago. 75%. Permian-Triassic extinction, 252 million years ago. 96%. The deadliest crisis our planet endured. Triassic-Jurassic extinction 201 million years ago. 70 to 75%. Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction 66 million years ago. 75%. 5 devastating wipeouts, 5 brushes with total downfall. Woven through them all like a persistent motif in an orchestra piece comes the identical narrative. The giants ascend, the giants dominate, the giants fade away. What makes such vast creatures so fragile when conditions sour? It starts with their diet. A blue whale devours 4 tons of krill each day in peak feeding periods. 4 tons. That's equivalent to 2 vehicles fueled into its system daily, just to sustain warmth and power, the vast network of organs and sinews. This setup thrives when krill overflow. In the Southern Ocean amid Antarctic summer, those swarms can span kilometers. Trillions of minuscule shellfish crammed together, tinting the waves rosy. A blue whale gulps down a bellyful in mere hours, banking calories for journeys spanning thousands of kilometers to balmy mating zones. But flip the script to food shortage, and the balance reverses. A little fish scrapes by on bits and pieces. It demands so little, scavenging those scraps nearly everywhere. Not a giant. A giant locks into a voracious energy demand, a lock that's tough to break. Should the krill clusters dwindle, fish stocks plummet, or plankton surges, the foundation of the food network fizzle out, the giants go hungry ahead of the pack. These global die-offs usually hit the ground level of production hardest, the core of the feeding pyramid. An asteroid collision dusts the skies, starving out sunlight and dooming the photosynthesizers that underpin all other life. Lava blasts spew fumes that sour the seas, crumbling the shells of the microorganisms bigger predators rely on. Every scenario slashes the influx of energy to the web. The upper-tier beasts, those guzzling the heaviest loads, hit the wall right away. Megalodon didn't fall to some direct killer. It perished because its favored whale prey shifted to icy realms it couldn't pursue, and the shallow breeding bays for its offspring dried up as oceans receded. The menu vanished. The living space vanished. Despite its might, the behemoth couldn't pivot swiftly enough. Another weakness lies in breeding pace. Big animals multiply at a snail's crawl. Biology dictates this, not preference. A mouse hits breeding age in 6 weeks. It drops a batch of 6 to 8 young, and those offspring crank out their own sets in just 2 months. Mouse numbers can multiply, then double up repeatedly, all in 1 year. Even if 99% perish in disaster, the holdouts rebound across a handful of cycles. A blue whale hits maturity between 5 and 10 years old. It births 1 offspring every 2 to 3 years following an 11-month pregnancy. That young one suckles for 6 to 7 months until weaned. If blue whales drop to 1% of their population, rebuilding would drag on for hundreds of years. Even if the remaining blue whales managed to locate one another amid the ocean's immense expanse, and even if the factors behind their drastic decline had truly ended, recovery would still demand ages to unfold. Analysis of growth rings in Megalodon's vertebrae reveals it needed roughly 25 years to attain full adult dimensions, a full quarter-century. During that span, a group of tiny fish might undergo countless generations, adjusting to evolving circumstances and developing responses to emerging challenges. Megalodon, however, lacked the speed for such evolution. Its lengthy generation span hindered rapid adaptation. The environment transformed more swiftly than its genetic makeup could follow. Herein lies the dilemma of immense scale. Enormous creatures thrive in consistent habitats. They falter amid flux. As weather patterns alter, as ocean depths fluctuate, as food sources relocate or dwindle, massive beasts struggle to adjust. They're bound to approaches that require decades to implement. The next weakness involves narrow adaptation. Dunkleosteus was finely tuned for an era dominated by armored prey. Its powerful jaws excelled at shattering placoderm plating and mollusk casings. Once placoderms vanished and the fortified marine realm of the Devonian crumbled, Dunkleosteus found itself without alternatives. It couldn't pivot to consuming soft-bodied fish. Its dentition wasn't suited for such targets. Similarly, ichthyosaurs were built for rapid chases across open seas. They excelled in their role. But as marine conditions shifted, with oxygen declining, heat surging, and the supportive ecology eroding, they possessed no backup plan. They couldn't ease into stealthy ambushes or target alternative quarry. Their forms were irrevocably dedicated to one mode of existence. Versatile species endure mass die-offs. Narrow experts perish. Sharks, for instance, have weathered 4 global catastrophes. Their edge: adaptability. They're not confined to a solitary physique or predatory tactic. Certain sharks hunt via swift pursuit, while others scavenge leisurely along the seafloor. Some devour fish, others crustaceans, and a few even filter plankton. As global shifts occur, particular shark groups may perish, yet others endure, evolving to claim surviving opportunities. Crocodilians push this further, persisting largely unaltered for 200 million years, surviving the Triassic-Jurassic boundary, the Cretaceous-Paleogene event, glacial epochs, balmy intervals, and all disasters in between. Their formula: broad-spectrum lurking hunts paired with minimal energy needs. They endure for months sans meals and handle diverse thermal extremes. Unspecialized for any single pursuit, they manage sufficiently across myriad scenarios. Giants, on the other hand, often specialize deeply. Natural selection drives them toward peak efficiency, sculpting forms that maximize gains within their specific domain. Yet this refinement becomes a snare. The more exquisitely suited you are to prevailing surroundings, the greater your fragility when those surroundings transform. A final frailty is scarcity. Colossal fauna are inherently sparse. They must be, given the ecological pyramid: plentiful vegetation at the foundation, scarcer grazers midway, and apex hunters fewest at the summit. At its zenith, Megalodon might have totaled mere tens of thousands globally. That figure seems substantial until considering their distribution across every sea worldwide, resulting in sparse distribution. Encounters between individuals could span months. Such thin numbers breed issues. Mating grows challenging, gene pools narrow, groups turn susceptible to regional disasters. A pathogen surge, a local prey crash, or a current alteration that scarcely impacts denser populations. For Megalodon, the finale likely unfolded incrementally, basin by basin. One oceanic population faded, followed by the next, and then another. No dramatic instant of oblivion, just a gradual erasure, area by area, until the final specimen perished amid the chill Pliocene currents, isolated and void. The trend is evident, unchanging over 500 million years. Titans emerge because oceanic physics allow it, granting perks in heat balance, energy use, and supremacy over rivals. They dominate for eons, fine-tuning to steady states and idealizing for the status quo. Then disruption strikes. Atmospheres waver, trophic chains reshuffle, reliable setups sour into hostile ones that penalize bigness. The behemoths fall foremost, their voracious appetites, sluggish breeding, tailored anatomies, and scant numbers sealing their fate. These traits that once gave them an edge now turn into burdens during turbulent times. They can't adjust swiftly enough. They can't breed fast enough. They can't get by on meager pickings. In the wake of devastation, with the seas left barren, the ones that endure start to expand. That's the pattern etched in the fossils. Following each major die-off, there's a surge toward enormous proportions. The lineages that pull through, unburdened by rivals, move into open ecological slots. They bulk up simply because the opportunity arises. They emerge as the fresh overlords of the revitalized seas until disaster strikes once more, restarting the loop. We're in the midst of the sixth great extinction right now. This one's not triggered by cosmic rocks or massive eruptions. It's driven by humanity. In the 19th and 20th centuries, industrial-scale whaling wiped out roughly 3 million massive whales. 3 million. The blue whales' numbers plummeted to around 5,000 animals, a drop of 99% in under a century. Humpbacks, fin whales, right whales, sperm whales, all pushed to the brink by people hunting them down. The slaughter has mostly ended. Global packs now safeguard most whale kinds. Their groups are rebounding gradually from rock bottom. Sharks haven't fared as well. Figures indicate that worldwide shark numbers have fallen by 70% since 1970. 70% in just 50 years. The oceanic whitetip, formerly a common top hunter in the deep blue, has sunk by 98%. The scalloped hammerhead by 89%. Even the great white, with its notorious image, grows scarcer by the day. The culprits are all too known. Overharvesting directly. Sharks snared unintentionally in gear targeting other fish. Loss of living spaces, and finning. Snagging sharks, slicing off their fins for broth, then tossing the mutilated carcasses back to perish. The ocean's dynamics still reward bigness. The push of evolution toward greater scale remains unaltered. What's shifted is our capacity to disrupt that force, to cull the titans quicker than they can replenish, to clear out habitats before successors can claim them. The sea is enduring. It's pieced itself back together 5 times already. It'll do so once more. But what sort of sea do we aim to hand off? One teeming with blue whales and great whites, colossal squid and sperm whales, the whole array of peak hunters that have shaped ocean life for eons. Or a realm dominated by jellyfish and minnows, where elite predators are gone and the food chains crumble into a bare, diminished state. The behemoths are delicate. They've always been so. They thrive amid calm and crumble amid upheaval. For the first time in Earth's living history, our kind has emerged as a force of disruption, on par with a meteor strike or a colossal volcanic outburst. We didn't seek this influence. We scarcely grasp it. The decisions we take over the coming decades will decide if these colossi endure or if we etch the sixth extinction into the strata for tomorrow's scientists to decode. The sea will endure. It's weathered harsher blows. The real issue is whether the giants will make it alongside. The mosasaur is extinct. The blue whale endures. Both reach similar dimensions. Both are atmospheric breathers that dwell oceanic lives. Both sprang from terrestrial forebears utterly unlike their watery offspring. The mosasaur dominated for 30 million years, before disappearing without a trace of kin. The blue whale has persisted for maybe 5 million years, and now courses through every sea worldwide. One's stone relic, the other's living tissue. Dividing them isn't bulk or power or adaptive prowess. It's fortune. the fortune of dodging disasters at the opportune moments, of your bloodline landing on the fortunate side. Today's ocean isn't vacant. It's shadowed by ghosts. The massive creatures gliding through it are remnants of ancient leviathans, occupying slots that have hosted life before, enacting parts in a drama spanning hundreds of millions of years. They're the holdouts, the strains that squeezed past the choke points, heirs to beings that timed their presence perfectly. Grasping who made it and how reveals truths about endurance at its core. The blue whale defies logic in its existence. It bucks every expectation. A beast heavier than any dinosaur. A heat-generating mammal flourishing in Antarctic chill, severe enough to fell a bare human in moments. A creature so immense its tongue rivals an elephant's weight, yet so agile it can surge through currents at 20 miles per hour on demand. Its heart rivals a compact vehicle. Its main artery could let a kid wriggle inside. As the whale plunges into the depths, its heartbeat slows dramatically to only 4 or 5 beats each minute. Any slower, and blood flow would come to a complete halt. Upon surfacing for air, the pulse surges up to 37 beats per minute, urgently delivering oxygen to tissues that had been surviving on limited stores. This heart mechanism pushes the boundaries of biological feasibility, but remarkably, it functions perfectly. It has done so across millions of years. In evolutionary history, the blue whale reached its immense scale just in the recent past. Fossils indicate that baleen whales stayed fairly small, around 10 to 15 meters for much of their lineage. The surge in body size kicked off approximately 4.5 million years ago, aligning with the start of the Pliocene ice ages. This alignment wasn't mere chance. With the poles icing over, currents in the oceans grew stronger. Chilly, nutrient-packed waters rose from below, enriching the surface layers and sparking massive seasonal krill blooms. Food resources clustered intensely, overflowing in certain areas and times while vanishing elsewhere. Long-distance migrations turned crucial, and journeys spanning thousands of kilometers rewarded bigger bodies. A heftier whale could hoard greater fat reserves, journey longer distances using those stores, and plunge deeper to snag krill clusters beyond the reach of tinier rivals. Those ice ages didn't merely allow for gigantism among baleen whales, they required it. Whales unable to bulk up sufficiently couldn't finish the migrations, so their lineages faded away. Another element enters the picture, one we've touched on before: Megalodon. That predator stalked whales for 20 million years, targeting baleen species in particular. The sluggish, sieve-feeding behemoths that proved vulnerable to a hunter as massive as a bus. Keeping compact provided a degree of safety. A 10-meter whale might slip by undetected, whereas a 20-meter one became prime fare. Once Megalodon vanished, the threat lifted. Baleen whales expanded, claiming the territory that predation had blocked, swelling to ever greater proportions until hitting today's pinnacle. The blue whale, stretching 30 meters and weighing 200 tons, stands as the biggest creature ever to roam the planet. The colossus endures precisely because the terror has departed. The sperm whale spins a contrasting tale. As Earth's largest toothed predator, it measures 18 meters and 60 tons, boasting a head so outsized it comprises a third of its full body length. Within that skull lies the spermaceti organ, a tank of oily wax that likely aids in managing buoyancy or echolocation, or perhaps both. though experts continue to debate. The sperm whale descends farther than any other mammal, plunging 3,000 meters into the oppressive gloom of the bathypelagic zone, where pressures would crush an unshielded human in an instant. Down there, it pursues colossal squid, Architeuthis, the mythical kraken, wrestling with inky, arm-waving quarry amid pitch darkness, relying solely on echolocation pulses that echo off the seabed a kilometer beneath. We learn of these clashes from the round scars etched on sperm whales' heads when they resurface, sucker marks forming telltale circles from the squid's counterattacks. Those cephalopods resist fiercely. They don't always yield. The sperm whale claims a role once filled by Leviathan, enormous, toothed, and carnivorous. But unlike Leviathan, it avoids preying on fellow whales, honing in instead on a food base inaccessible to other big hunters. Deep ocean cephalopods, beings dwelling past the sun's grasp in an alien realm. This focus likely preserved it. During the height of whaling, sperm whales faced heavy pursuit for their spermaceti oil, valued in candles and oils, yet they never neared the brink like baleen whales. Their profound dives complicated the chase, and their quarry, unlike krill, escaped depletion from commercial trawling. Leviathan prowled the surface, vying with megalodon over identical whale targets. As environments shifted, both titans collapsed. By withdrawing to the abyss, the sperm whale discovered a sanctuary that has nourished it for eons. Folks often label the great white shark a living relic, but that's inaccurate. Great whites aren't relics or holdovers unaltered from the dinosaur era. They arose fairly lately, maybe 4 to 5 million years back, descending from already cunning hunter forebears. These are contemporary beasts, fine-tuned for today's seas. Their true hallmark is endurance. Great whites endure an impressive spectrum of water temperatures, from as low as 3 degrees Celsius to highs of 24 degrees Celsius, a versatility uncommon in hefty sharks that has benefited them greatly. While Megalodon couldn't track its quarry into chillier realms, great white ancestors could, spreading into habitats the giant had forsaken. Bulk plays a part, though differently from Megalodon's approach. Great whites top out near 6 meters, just a quarter the span of a full-grown Megalodon. Far from a drawback, this proves an advantage. A shark measuring 6 meters requires far less sustenance than one stretching 24 meters. It thrives on a diet of seals, sea lions, and sizable fish, prey that's plentiful in cooler coastal regions. Constant access to whales isn't necessary for its survival. Rather than being a scaled-down version of the Megalodon, the great white represents an alternative approach to a distinct challenge. The Megalodon thrived in a warm, whale-abundant sea, whereas the great white excels in a chillier, less predictable environment where adaptability trumps sheer bulk. This strategy has proven effective, allowing great whites to inhabit oceans worldwide, from South Africa and California to Australia. As top predators in their habitats, they command fear and admiration, while conservation initiatives highlight their vital role. Yet for all their formidable image, they remain at risk. Global population figures are hazy, though experts estimate just a few thousand individuals. Their breeding cycle is sluggish. Females reach maturity at about 15 years and bear small broods following extended pregnancies. Such demographics mean recoveries from declines happen gradually. The great white has endured through glacial epochs, the megalodon's demise, and eons of shifting seas. Its fate in the face of human impact, however, hangs in the balance. Venture further, In the lightless abyss beyond the domain of typical big hunters, the sea conceals mysteries. The giant squid existed as myth long before becoming a verified creature. Tales from sailors described the kraken, writhing tentacles ensnaring vessels, enormous eyes like platters gazing from the abyss. Experts scoffed at these yarns until proof piled up. Beaks inside whale bellies, suction marks on sperm whale hides, and rare, decaying bodies stranded on shores. The inaugural photo of a live giant squid in its wild setting emerged in 2004, followed by the first footage in 2012. For ages, we've spun legends about it. We've captured it on camera for scarcely 10 years. Architeuthis ducks can extend to 13 meters, tentacles included. Its eyes, the biggest among all creatures, measure up to 27 centimeters across, adapted to catch the slightest glimmers of deep-sea glow. It dwells between 300 and 1,000 meters down, or perhaps even lower. Details on its habits, breeding, and numbers elude us. It's far from solitary in those depths. The colossal squid, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, might surpass it in size, stockier build with shorter arms equipped with swiveling hooks rather than mere suckers. It inhabits Antarctic depths that defy easy study. Only a handful of whole specimens have been scrutinized. These behemoths lurk openly in waters we presume familiar. They occupy ancient ecological slots persisting for hundreds of millions of years as major cephalopod hunters, a part once filled by Camaraoceras in the Ordovician and Ammonites in the Mesozoic. Though forms evolve, the function endures. In 1938, curator Marjorie Courtenay Latimer inspected a South African fishing trawler's haul and spotted an oddity. The 1.5-meter specimen had peculiar lobed fins and plating-like scales. It looked grotesque, bluish-gray mottling and a reek indicating prolonged death. Unfamiliar with it, she sensed its anomaly compared to known species. She reached out to J.L.B. Smith, an ichthyologist versed in southern African fishes. Smith's reaction to her drawing was disbelief. The creature was a coelacanth, presumed extinct alongside dinosaurs 66 million years back, vanishing from fossils then. Discovering a live one rivaled spotting a breathing pterodactyl, an outright contradiction of paleontological timelines. Still, there it lay on an East London pier in South Africa's sweltering December, reeking away. Another example surfaced 14 years later. Coelacanths, it transpired, inhabit profound waters near the Comoro Islands, off Madagascar and Africa's coast. Locals had netted them routinely, dubbing them gombessa and deeming them inedible, the meat too oily, fit only for scuffing bike tire linings. A separate group turned up near Indonesia in 1998. More could exist. By this narrative scale, the coelacanth isn't colossal, yet it stands out as extraordinary. A holdover lineage, virtually unaltered across 400 million years. It shared waters with Dunkleosteus, witnessed mosasaurs' ascent and decline, and outlasted Megalodon by 60 million years. The profound sea offers sanctuary. It's chilly, shadowy, and steady down there, shielded from the disasters that repeatedly ravage the world overhead. Animals that head to the ocean's depths can endure across countless generations. As the surface world scorches, ice is over, and scorches once more. The colossal beings of the abyss aren't mere holdovers from the past. They serve as evidence that the sea predates our wildest notions of its age, that it guards its mysteries closely, and that enduring often hinges more on seeking a serene spot to ride out the turmoil than on raw power. In the Atacama Desert, Earth's driest spot, a mound composed of whale remains stands. The Pan American Highway slices through northern Chile, traversing terrain so desolate it's been employed to mimic Mars. No vegetation thrives in this region. Precipitation hasn't appeared in certain spots for hundreds of years. The terrain consists of saline soil, stone, and utter quiet. During 2010, workers expanding the road cut into a modest hill close to the town of Calama. Their discovery halted the equipment. Skeletal remains, scores of frameworks aligned in straight lines, surfacing from the sandstone as if a photo were gradually forming. Whales, baleen whales, no fewer than 40 specimens, some exceeding 12 meters in length. Intermingled with them were fossils of various marine animals, seals, dolphins, an extinct water-dwelling sloth, and a walrus-like whale named Odobenatops that vanished millions of years ago. They named the discovery site Cerro Balena, Whale Hill. These whales didn't perish from natural causes or attacks. No tooth marks or evidence of fights appeared. They succumbed collectively during a minimum of 4 distinct episodes over thousands of years, each time in the identical location, always washing ashore on the same prehistoric coast. Analysis through paleontological forensics yielded the explanation. The sediment's composition, bone positioning, and preserved algae varieties all indicated one culprit: toxic algal blooms, known as red tides. The whales had ingested a lethal toxin. They ventured into waters laden with harmful dinoflagellates, inhaled polluted surface air, and preyed on fish that had accumulated the poisons in their tissues. Gradually, they became confused, frail, and fatal. Ocean flows transported their corpses to this protected bay, where layers of mud entombed them, safeguarding the remains for 9 million years. Cerro Balena isn't merely a burial ground. It's an archive, a series of 40-ton snapshots, recurring over eons, capturing incidents that would have vanished without record. This is the role of titans. They chronicle. They endure in memory. They etch chronicles into their frameworks. A blue whale, foraging in Antarctic seas, devours 4 tons of krill daily. Those krill brim with iron and nitrogen, elements in short supply across vast expanses of ocean. The whale processes this bounty, absorbs essentials, and expels the surplus. Its waste, a hazy red cloud spreading just below the surface, ranks among the strongest natural enhancers in seawater. The iron it releases nourishes phytoplankton. These tiny plants form the ocean's foundation, the base of its entire food chain. They draw in atmospheric carbon dioxide and emit oxygen. They generate about half of Earth's yearly oxygen output. Greater whale numbers yield more waste. More waste delivers more iron. More iron spurs more phytoplankton. More phytoplankton produces more oxygen, more seafood, more krill, and thus more sustenance for whales. The loop sustains itself. Researchers term it the whale pump. Prior to the era of large-scale whaling, when whale herds reached the millions instead of mere hundreds of thousands, this mechanism functioned on an immense scale beyond our comprehension. The Southern Ocean teemed with greater productivity, richer fertility, and vibrant life, thanks in measure to the countless whales navigating its waters, feeding, voiding, and perishing. The perishing counts as well. When a whale expires amid open seas, its carcass plummets, 40 tons of meat and skeleton cascading down the water layers, sinking for hours or days before touching bottom. Experts dub this a whale fall. A whale fall creates a lush haven amid the barren expanse of the profound sea. The ocean floor is starved of sustenance. Provisions are rare. Life there relies on marine snow, the gradual descent of debris from the bountiful upper layers, a meager trickle spanning thousands of meters. A whale corpse offers a feast, an abundance, a century's worth of nourishment delivered in a surge. Initial foragers show up in mere hours. Hagfish, sleeper sharks, crabs, amphipods. They ravage the tender parts, devouring fat and sinew at top speed. This phase might span months or years based on the whale's dimensions. Once the pliable flesh vanishes, another group assumes control. Microbes settle on the bones, degrading fats embedded in the structure. Unique worms known as ossidacs or bone worms drill into the leftovers, harvesting nourishment inaccessible to most life forms. Mussels and clams gather near the decaying body, drawing energy from the chemicals produced by bacterial breakdown. One whale fall can support an entire community for 50 to 100 years. Across the deep sea, these vital hotspots are scattered like islands, linked by larvae floating on ocean currents, creating a web of life that thrives solely due to the demise of colossal creatures. A drop in whale numbers leads to fewer such falls. With fewer falls, specialized groups lose essential living spaces. The sharp decline in whales during the 19th and 20th centuries didn't merely erase the animals from the seas. It dismantled a vital cycle of decay, a long-standing mechanism for distributing nutrients that had functioned for millions of years. Impacts reach far past mere chemical shifts. Apex hunters organize entire habitats through the terror they inspire. Back in the 1990s, wolves returned to Yellowstone National Park following a 70-year hiatus. Elk herds had grown overcrowded. Willows and aspens suffered heavy browsing. River edges were wearing away. Scientists anticipated that the wolves would cull elk through direct attacks. Instead, something more unexpected unfolded. The elk didn't simply perish in greater numbers. Their habits shifted dramatically. They quit dawdling in exposed meadows where predators might detect them. They steered clear of stream sides with few ways to flee. They grew alert and edgy, constantly scanning for danger. Vegetation bounced back. Willows sprouted anew beside the waterways. Aspens revived in spots barren for generations. Beavers reappeared, using the fresh willow growth to build their lodges. Those structures altered river currents. In turn, the rivers reshaped the terrain. Experts termed this a trophic cascade. The far-reaching waves that course through food chains after a dominant hunter vanishes or reappears. The wolves went beyond slaying elk. They transformed the ways elk interacted with their surroundings. That shift, in essence, rebuilt the whole ecological framework. Similar forces play out in marine realms. Great white sharks roam the shores of South Africa, California, and Australia. Their mere existence influences where seals and sea lions rest, hunt, and linger in the waves, and for how long. Those seals, in response, impact the fish they chase. The fish influence bottom dwellers. Those creatures affect seaweed growth. All elements interlink. Strip away the sharks and those bonds start to fray. Seal groups surge in certain zones while plummeting elsewhere. Fish assemblages shift. Kelp beds swell or shrink based on which plant eaters escape control. The balance settles into a fresh state, yet it's a reduced one, less intricate, stripped of key structural supports. The fossil evidence repeats this pattern time and again. Once titans vanish, be it from mass die-offs, environmental upheavals, or human pursuits, the habitats they molded don't persist unchanged. They evolve. They morph into forms unimaginable had those behemoths endured. Ecology speaks of trophic downgrading, the gradual purging of big beasts from natural systems, not via abrupt cataclysms, but via persistent strains from overhunting shrinking territories and shifting climates. Megafauna go first, the easiest to spot, the priciest prizes, the frailest targets. Next come the major carnivores, followed by hefty plant munchers. The hierarchy of species crumbles from the peak downward. This unfolded on continents. The mammoths and mastodons that sculpted the plains of North America and Eurasia have vanished. South America's enormous ground sloths, which trimmed forest edges, are extinct. Australia's behemoth browsers, the diprotodons and oversized marsupials, faded mere millennia after people arrived. The seas face an identical unraveling, squeezed into a tighter schedule. Commercial whaling wiped out 3 million massive whales in under 100 years. Shark numbers have dropped 70% over the past 50 years. Top-tier hunters like tuna, swordfish, and marlin now linger at mere shadows of their past plenty. The vibrant waters that greeted 16th-century European voyagers, brimming with whales, sharks, and enormous fish, belong to history. The full scope of our losses eludes us still. Surviving whales form a sparse holdout, inching toward recovery, yet nowhere near former peaks. Their roles in cycling nutrients, creating whale falls, and steering prey behaviors now hum at a whisper of past vigor. The ocean operates on a leaner ledger, and its ultimate fallout remains a mystery. Titans aren't mere ornaments. That's the takeaway from Cerro Balena, the whale pump, and the trophic cascades that surge when behemoths fade. Titans serve purposes. They cycle vital elements. They organize the chains of consumption. When these massive creatures perish, they form new environments. Their skeletons etch the past into enduring records. An ocean lacking such giants isn't merely one deprived of a handful of species. It's an entirely altered realm, governed by novel principles that sustain distinct ecosystems. The void left by these behemoths isn't mere emptiness. It's an active force, exerting influence over all that persists. From the fossil evidence, we learn that giants invariably re-emerge after sufficient epochs have passed. Following each great die-off, fresh colossal forms arise to reclaim vacant roles. The ocean's fundamental dynamics require it. The drive in evolution toward greater scale endures relentlessly. Rebuilding demands eons, millions of years. Human society has spanned roughly 10,000 years. The whales we're safeguarding today, the sharks we're fighting to preserve. They represent more than isolated kinds. They embody the fading echoes of a framework that evolved over hundreds of millions of years. Should they vanish, the sea will someday yield new titans. But humanity won't witness that revival. Our decisions today shape whether descendants will dwell in a realm graced by blue whales, great white sharks, and sperm whales plunging 3,000 meters to pursue colossal squid, or inherit a sea dominated by jellyfish and minnows, a domain robbed of its premier predators, forced to reconstruct from the ground up. These giants lack voices to plead their case. They can only navigate, nourish themselves, perish, and await our verdict. 500 million years defies human comprehension. Imagine condensing Earth's timeline into 1 year. All of humankind's journey from primitive tools to lunar steps unfolds in the final instance of December 31st. On that scale, giants command entire months. Trilobites roamed the seabed for almost 300 million years. Ammonites coiled through the depths for 350 million. Sharks have prowled the waves since before terrestrial trees took root. In this vast tapestry, our era registers as a fleeting pulse, one throb in an immense existence. The sea retains its chronicles. It recalls the vice-like bites of Dunkleosteus and the stealthy sweeps of plesiosaurs. It holds the memory of megalodon's looming silhouette across the seabed and the initial awkward lunges of whales adapting to aquatic life. It knows the hush after asteroid strikes and the persistent resurgence of vitality that inevitably trails the quiet. The ocean endures with patience. It offers no verdicts. It simply persists, a vault of profound antiquity, an archive inscribed in sedimentary strata and genetic scripts. Certain volumes are sealed eternally. Others continue unfolding, while some may lurk undiscovered on unseen racks. Recall the coelacanth. For 66 million years, we deemed it extinct. Its elegy was carved in rock, enshrined in the gallery of vanished wonders beside dinosaurs and ammonites. Yet, in the submerged chasms of the Indian Ocean, within lightless grottos beyond human reach, the coelacanth glided serenely, respiring the currents, consuming prey, thriving in obscurity, unconcerned by our errors. The ocean safeguards mysteries. Its expanse conceals, its profound reaches provide refuge. We've mapped under 5% of the seafloor. We've catalogued but a sliver of its inhabitants. Across abyssal expanses, in profound furrows amid frigid outflows and scalding vents, beings thrive unseen by any person. Down there, other relics might endure. Emerging giants could be gestating, or the sole enigma remaining is the one we bear within. Consider your hand. The salinity in your bloodstream mirrors that of primordial seas. The calcium in your skeleton originated in cosmic blasts that fashioned Devonian corals. The fluid in your tissues is the very same that once filtered through shark gills, buoyed a blue whale's bulk, or drenched a Jurassic woodland. We stand apart from this narrative, no more than its components. We embody it. We are the sea's momentary foray ashore, bearing abyssal legacies in our circulation. Gazing seaward from the coast, an ancient tug stirs, predating words, predating cognition. It's the draw of origin. The sun has dipped away. Night cloaks the heavens, the waters lie inky and serene. Waves murmur a timeless cadence, a cradle song echoing across 4 billion years. Breathe in, breathe out. Envision the nocturnal sea. Its face reflects the constellations. In the mesopelagic zone beneath, lanternfish ascend in schools. A cosmos of bioluminescent sparks climbs to forage. Deeper, sperm whales plunge, forsaking the surface, sinking into profound stillness. Beyond the edges of the continental shelves and the deep canyons plunge to the abyssal plain. In this realm, the waters remain calm. The chill hovers just above freezing, and utter blackness reigns. Yet life persists. Tune into the quiet of your thoughts, and you'll feel their presence. Echoes of colossal beings, remnants from ancient eras, harbingers of what's to come, all lingering in the inky depths. The Anomalocaris, the Dunkleosteus, the Megalodon, the blue whale. They glide side by side through the perpetual, eternal sea of darkness, floating effortlessly, unburdened, serene. The ocean keeps their memory alive, and on this night, it cradles you as well. Rest easy. The waves feel gentle. The flow is gentle. The Titans stand guard. Good night.